Welcome to episode 45 of Success of Demo. Each episode analyze the theory and practical aspects of one release cards. It's time to break the silence on Netrunner's impending shutdown and what it means for my channel in the short term. So I actually do have a couple of video ideas that I have in mind and that I want to publish within the next couple of weeks. So most notably, as you noticed by the episode number, I have a 50th episode special in mind that I really want to get to. So that is definitely a short-term goal for me. As such, as far as my channel is concerned, it's going to be business as usual. It might seem a bit awkward because after all, with the game's loss of official support, it feels like making videos is like, dead man walking. What's the point? The game's gonna die out anyway. Well, I went to check my Patreon numbers, and as it turns out, there was no noticeable loss in support from you wonderful Patreon viewers. So as far as I'm concerned, no. It seems like there's still demand for my videos, so there's definitely a point to making them. Not to mention that most of my videos are very time sensitive anyway, in the sense that after the initial week of publishing a video, it's very unlikely that people go back to watch videos again. I mean, would you watch a video that I published 2 years ago? It's basically irrelevant now that so many new cards have been released. So as such, it doesn't really matter whether the game's losing official support or not, because I'm just here to make videos for the present for all of you to enjoy, and well, that will continue at least for the short term. With that all done and said, today's card of the day, we are going to finally venture into Kampala Ascendant, the 6th and final data pack of the Kitara cycle. We'll be looking at Engolo, which is the decoder. Well, the lots of decoders were released in this cycle, but we'll be looking at the Shaper one. Well, when I saw the numbers on this breaker, I immediately thought of Houdini because it has the exact same numbers. Same base strength, same pumping ratio, and same 1 credit to break each code gate subroutine. However, that's where the similarities end, because as far as the eye can see, Houdini is basically superior to Engolo in every single way. The only real benefit of Engolo is that you get the code gate conversion ability, which, make no mistake, is a very strong and powerful ability, but with all the other downsides attached, the massively increased install cost, the MU cost, the increased influence, the fact that it doesn't retain strength throughout the run, it kind of makes it that much less appealing. I mean, don't get me wrong, Houdini is a pretty efficient breaker, and being able to play a breaker with Houdini's numbers without stealth credits sounds pretty good. But there are quite a lot of downsides to Engolo. Now, most of you actually would compare Engolo to the other conversion breaker in Laamb. So Laamb is the barrier, or rather fractal analog to Engolo. And while it seems that while code gate breakers are supposed to be better than barrier breakers, at least in the Shaper faction, it turns out that that isn't really the case. When you actually stack them side by side, it turns out that they are actually roughly of the same power level. And if you consider that in the current meta game, the most powerful eyes are those with multiple subroutines, as they are able to tax the runner out the most, Laamb actually suddenly looks a lot more appealing compared to Engolo, which only has a 1-to-1 break ratio. Laamb has a 2 to break any number, which is pretty good against a lot of eyes out there nowadays. If you think of all the taxing code gates, your Fairchild 3s, your DNA trackers, these have 3 subroutines, and Laamb's numbers are just better for that than Engolo. So it makes you wonder, is there really a place for Engolo in the current meta when its numbers are just not that good? Well, we can play Engolo and Laamb together. I think that's what the designers had in mind. So you install these 2 breakers, it takes out all 4 of your memory, which is a kind of a problem, but otherwise you'll be able to break all the ice on the table, and up to 2 sentries a turn. Even though you don't have a sentry breaker out, you can convert them into code gates or barriers, whichever you feel like doing. The trouble with an Engolo Laamb suite is that it is utterly inefficient, right? So with any ice that is strength 3 or more, you are going to have to spend 7 credits to break it with Laamb, or at least 5 credits to break it with Engolo, assuming it's a sentry. If it's a barrier or code gate, perhaps it costs less, but it's still rather inefficient. You would need a lot of money to make these breakers viable, and that means playing Magnum Opus as a restricted card, which again is a problem because these are taking all your memory. So yeah, there's the anti-synergy right there. You can't play Magnum Opus with Engolo and Laamb. Well, you can, but that's a lot of setup required. You need to set up your memory as well. So, you're going to run into problems that way. If you want to, play memory cards like Leprechaun so that you can mitigate the 2 MU costs of Engolo and Laamb, at that point, you are just better off playing the brains over brawn. That's right, playing cards like Savant, where you don't have to convert the ice type, where you don't have to pump strength. It's just a lot more efficient than Engolo. So that's the main problem. Engolo's not a bad card, it just doesn't compare to the rest of the competition. A lot of times, it's just better to play Houdini, or just Laamb, or Savant. So, it begs the question, how do we take advantage of Engolo dealing with code gates? Because it seems like its numbers are just not up to par. Yeah, I'm definitely begging the question here. It seems obvious what I'm trying to get at. Engolo was designed for one and only one purpose, to be played in kit. The reason is simple. Imagine a 2 ice server. It doesn't matter what the ice is at all. All you need as kit is a click and 5 credits to drop the Engolo on the table, and you suddenly can threaten any server with 2 ice on it. Because no matter the subtype, you can always convert the outer ice into a code gate with kit's ability, break it with Engolo, and then the inner ice can be converted into a code gate with Engolo itself. So you can basically threaten a run on any 2 ice server as long as you have Engolo installed. That's a pretty good deal to have, for considering that Engolo is a one-off install that works for the rest of the game. So that is a very powerful ability to have. And the best part is there are no hard counters to it on the co-op side, because right now there are no co-op cards that prevent ice from gaining subtypes. So that's something that the co-op can't tag for. So obviously the weakness of Engolo being expensive still remains. It is still a problem. So obviously we are going to play Magnum Opus as our restricted card. As mentioned, it fits perfectly, and that will be your breaker suite for most of the early to mid game. Just Kit and Engolo alone can do a lot of work. Pressuring the remote, making sure that the co-op doesn't score any non-fast advanceable agendas behind those ice. Right. So what does the deck list look like? Well, as I said, all you need is Engolo and the money to use Engolo to break ice. So the deck list looks kind of like this. That's all you need, really. That's all you want. That's all you want to see in your opening hand. This deck makes sense. So yeah, obviously the only problem here is Kit isn't a minimum 2-card deck. It's minimum 45 cards. So we need to pad this deck out with 43 other random cards. So honestly, there are lots of ways you can build this Kit deck. You're short of influence, but otherwise, most shaper/neutral cards will do the trick. So I'm going to show you one possible build, and we'll see how our game goes. Today we find ourselves up against Lance, who is sporting the Euros deck. Now, as you can tell from the identity, they basically can choose one of 3 different flavors of Dragonites. And while I don't know much about Dragonites, I do know that they are trying to kill us. So we need to be extra vigilant here, to be careful to not lose to a cheeky flat line. So, Lance immediately opens with Remote Ice right off the bat. Very scary here. Hedge fund and then R&D. So clearly they're trying to rush out an agenda, and we want to try to stop it, but we can't really run yet. We need to set up our Magnum Opus. Thankfully, we draw it into our opening hand after the Diesel Show Gamble opening, allowing us to have a very good setup, allowing us to run HQ turn 2, except that Lance basically ices up all the servers, so no running to be done. Now we do have the SMC in our hand, which allows us to fetch the Engolo, which is very convenient. I would love to draw into a stim hack here to cheat the Engolo in for free. Now, brain damage, not very ideal against this deck, but hey, if I get the Engolo set up, I should hopefully be able to close out the game before they can kill me with damage. No matter, I do draw into the Engolo manually anyway. Running 3 copies of it, I'm sure to find it very quickly, and I get a discount on it with modded. So, who needs a stim hack here? Now, our opponent reveals that they are on Urban Renewal Biotech. So the combo is Urban Renewal fires, I lose 4 cards from my hand, their identity ability takes another 2 cards off my hand to flatline. We can't have that, so we immediately challenge the Urban Renewal. Now, I could have waited one more turn here, but I chose not to because I didn't want to give my opponent the chance to fortify the server further. So we bump into the Anansi, which we are guaranteed to break because Engolo is an awesome breaker. You convert the Anansi into a code gate and then just slice your way through. Don't worry, no net damage going to be taken due to Anansi's after encounter effect. However, there is a Marcus Batty in the server that my opponent can potentially use to deal some damage. Now, thankfully, Anansi's subroutines are not particularly impactful. It's no DNA tracker, so the most we'll be getting is 1 net damage, I suppose, which doesn't even happen because we win the side game. Very easy 0-bit here. Because I am the best mind reader in the world. No, just kidding. Of course, I bid 0 here because I want to finish the run with enough money to trash the Urban Renewal. So we are going to access. I think you'll notice here that I access the Urban Renewal first because I don't want to get screwed by Mumbai Virtual Tour. It turns out to be a self-destruct. What the heck? What is this deck? What sorcery is this? This is a pure flatline deck. Okay, I'm kind of scared here. Apparently, my opponent could have flatlined me if I were 1 card less. I had 4 cards, which was just enough to protect me. If I had 3 cards, they would have flatlined me with the combination of Batty net damage into self-destruct. Very scary. Very, very scary. We dodge a bullet right there, and we empty our opponent's remote. Win-win for us. Now it's time to show up our board state and to get some more credits. Ditching the fam into the bin because we know we can fetch it later with test run into scavenge. Now our opponent installed double advances and it should be obvious that we go for it here. Keep our opponent honest. Though they are only on 4 credits, it should be fairly obvious that this actually is an NGO front. So once again, we break the Nancy easily with Engolo and then spend the rest of the turn taking money, and our opponent does the same, install double advance play again. This time they have more money, but we can just keep doing this again and again. Engolo, while not the most efficient breaker, is still self-sustainable as it's only 1 ice that we are breaking, and Magnum Opus allows us to regain the money with the rest of our turn. So really, no problem here. Gain 6 with Mopus, run the remote. It's going to cost 2 to convert the Anansi and then 5 to break all subroutines. So we gain 6, lose 7 credits. We're still not doing too bad, right? So we do it again, and once again, it's the second NGO front. So yeah, sadly, we lost 2 turns of tempo there while our opponent gained, 12 credits? Thereabouts off of it. Not the most ideal situation as our opponent shores up their remote and leaves us biting the dust. But we're not out of it just yet. I find my U-backs and that will give me draw for the rest of the game. Very vital against this damage deck. So I wouldn't say we are doing too badly even though we have no agendas. At least we're keeping our opponent honest and at least we have our basic rig set up. I also have a feedback filter there so we don't have to worry about flatline to net damage. So we all good here and we draw into another test run actually. Yeah, a lot of card art with Chaos Theory on it, but we are not playing Chaos Theory. This is test run to scavenge that's going to come into play soon. I just need to find a good piece of ice to fem. Now, obviously, we can't fem Anansi. That's a pretty silly thing to do because bypassing Anansi, we still take 3 net damage. So I want to force my opponent to rest something that I can fem. Easier said than done, really. So, back on my turn, I'm contemplating pressuring R&D here. It's time I made some R&D runs. Checking my bin, wondering what I should do next. The problem with running R&D here is my opponent is rich. If I go down to very few credits at the end of my turn, it will give them a scoring window. But on the other hand, they only have 1 card in hand. What are the chances that they actually have an agenda ready to go? So after a lot of thought, I decided to grab the fem and fem the innermost R&D ice. then induce a run on R&D. Now first we meet a Harvester. This would normally be an advantageous ice for us, the runner. Unfortunately, with a full hand, do we really want to draw 6 cards and discard 6 cards? I think not. So unfortunately, we do have to break it, and it's pretty expensive. 4 credits for the Harvester. Ugh, that's bad. That's really bad. Harvester getting the better of us, better end of us there. We find an Obokater, which is immediately stolen. Unfortunately, the net damage snipes both of our scavengers. That is very unlucky, which means the fam goes back to the top of deck. We don't get to scavenge it to cheat it into play. This was a huge turn for my opponent, because that was a lot of, the test run scavenge is a very powerful combo. Losing it means that we have to hard install the fam, which is really bad for us. Right, so big problem here. We are stuck with a fam in hand. The thing is, I really need to get the fam on the board, because I can't afford to hit a nasty sentry that can potentially end my game. So very scary here. Lots of nasty ice that my opponent could potentially threaten, as well as a Chiashi, another ice that I don't really have a solution for. I'm starting to draw my solutions, but I only have 1 free memory. Engolo and Mopus both take up 2 mem, and Ubax only gives me 1 extra. So I can only install fam or lady, not both. Besides, I don't really have enough money to install stuff just yet. Thankfully, our opponent isn't pressuring much. They are not advancing cards behind server 1, so I can afford to spend some time to take money and think about my future. Again, I really want to play the fam as a sentry breaker. I just don't have a good piece of ice to fam just yet. So after thinking about this card, I made the very questionable decision of putting the fam in the bin for my discard. I definitely should be discarding the Ubax here. Not sure why I'm putting the fam in the bin, thinking that I can fetch it with another test run, but that's probably going to be a mistake, as our opponent reviews Arc Lockdown from their hand. Fam is the only sentry breaker in my deck, proper sentry breaker. Of course, I have Engolo and Kit's ability, but innermost sentries can be a big problem for us, even with hunting grounds out. So I need to get the fam out of my bin before they play the Arc Lockdown. This is actually a very tenuous situation here. Right, so I drew into the Maker's Eye, and this gave me a reason to play the test run. Not only do I get to test run for the fam to put it back into my deck, but more importantly, I get a run on R&D, allowing me to dig deeper into R&D to see 3 cards. I'm going to Ngolo the Kakugo, knowing that I can break the Harvester normally, as it's a code gate, and the innermost ice is bypassable no matter what. So we all good here. We are gonna Maker's Eye our way through and see 3 cards. Of course, I'm gonna avoid the net damage from the Kakugo, because there are too many cards in my hand that I can't afford to lose, most notably the Lady. If that ever gets sniped, I will be in deep trouble. Again, Arc Lockdown, causing problems for my one-off breakers. I access a Self-Destruct, which goes in the bin, a Nisei Mark II goes in my score area, and Urban Renewal, again, that automatically goes in the bin. So 3 cards off the top, 3 cards taken away from my opponent, thankfully, because all those 3 cards were pretty scary. As our opponent double advances the item in the remote. No, triple advances. What on earth could this possibly be? Well, we probably should go check it, huh? Unfortunately, being only on 5 credits, it's not an option. I think we'll just take money for this turn. From 5 to 15 in a single turn, I'll take that, as our opponent scores an Obokata of their own. That's completely fine. They gain nothing, and I can resume pressuring R&D. It's a bit expensive though. That Kakugo really causing problems, even though it's cheap to break with Engolo. Avoiding the net damage, not so cheap. We also have to worry about getting our breakers on the board. Remember, the test run fam went back to our stack. So here we finally hard install the fam on the innermost ice on R&D. Not sure why our opponent refused to res that ice, but I assume it's something pretty nasty. Not cheap to res, so I better fam it regardless. Our opponent single advances something in the remote, and I'm worried that it's a Nisei Mark II. I really cannot afford to give my opponent a Nisei Mark II to double the taxation costs of the remote. More importantly, knocking me out, because again, Ngolo is 1 use per turn. If my opponent gets a Nisei scored, I'll have to rely on my normal breakers if I want to run a server twice in a turn, which is not really an option now. So I really need to contest that server if it has a Nisei Mark II in it. So I'm just looking at my credit pool, looking at the ice, wondering what could possibly be in the server. This is a really tough place to be. And who knows what else is in the server. The 2 upgrades there could be a self-destruct. Lots of problems abound. I chose to pressure R&D instead of going for the remote here. Being on match point, hopefully I can find a winning agenda. I can steal an oboe carter or anything at all to win the game. So hopefully I can find a winning agenda off the top of R&D before they score their last one. I allow a harvester to fire here because I really want to save on the break costs, and also at this point I probably won't lose the game to milling because I only need 1 agenda to win and there's only 1 oboe carter left in the deck. So I'm going to, filter through my deck and find some nice cards like the Beth, like the Cyberdelia that will extend my memory. So those are cards I want to get on the table ASAP. I click for Mopus and install the 2 resources to get me back into the game. Hopefully faster than ever, making my turns that much more efficient and the late game that much more inevitable. Now my opponent proceeds to score the Nisei Mark II. I said my opponent proceeds to score the Nisei Mark II. Scored the... No, they are not scoring the Nisei Mark II. What the heck is going on here? Is that a Junebug or something? I'm getting ruse here, am I not? Okay, so they're not scoring that thing. What do I do? I don't know. I guess I'll set up. So I'm gonna drop the Cyberdelia here. And as they show, it's a reversed accounts. Jeez, this deck is spicy as all hell. Okay, I'm back to 0 credits, but no worries. By now, I'm well and truly set up. So with Mopus economy as recovery and lots of drip economy heading my way, my opponent really... That reverse accounts was probably a bigger tempo hit for my opponent than it was for me. I draw into my equivocation at long last and do finally have the memory to install it. The Cyberdelia, of course, giving 1 memory. So that's the missing piece of R&D pressure that I was looking for. With equivocation out, it makes a lot more sense to run R&D. Now here I'm just computing the cost of running through R&D here, because what I want to do is to drop equivocation and stim hack into R&D. Seeing 2 cards and probably winning the game, given that there are still so many agendas in circulation and I only need 1 of them to win the game. Well, it's not gonna happen though, or is it? I take 2 Mopus credits, 2 clicks of Mopus, or actually 1 click of Mopus, and then drop equivocation, stim hack into R&D 3rd click with 1 remaining click, in case of an emergency. I'm gonna break the Kakugo with Engolo, converting it into a code gate, meeting the harvester. I realize I can't really break it. I'm short of credits, so it costs 4 credits to break the Engolo, but that would leave me on only 1 credit, which would be a disaster if my opponent resists the innermost ice and I can't afford to bypass it. So here I am basically forced to let harvester fire because I want to approach the last piece of ice with at least 3 credits so that I can bypass a 3 subroutine ice, be it DNA Tracker or Nancy. After some more thought, I realized that there was something I was missing. I forgot to trigger my Cyberdelia. So the Cyberdelia is going to give me 1 extra credit, which makes all the difference because with the 1 extra credit, I can break 1 harvester subroutine, allow a harvester to fire once, and then go through the remote with with exactly 3 credits remaining. So harvester gets to fire once, and I get to filter through my deck once again, ditching a couple of unnecessary cards at this point. And then we approach the inner ice, which our opponent once again chooses not to res. We are going to make a successful run here. Equivocation forces my opponent to draw IPO and an access and a Nancy, taking 1 brain damage here. Okay. Still no agendas. Not exactly what I was hoping for, as our opponent signals for the game to end with a urban renewal res in the remote. Now that puts me on a timer. I have no way to deflect the urban renewal meat damage. Right? Feedback filter only protects for net damage. That would leave me with 3 hit points left in my deck because I will lose all 4 cards in my hand. 3 hit points is not enough to steal the last oboe carter. So that's a big problem. With fewer agendas available to steal, I am narrowing my odds if my opponent ever gets to fire the urban renewal off. We need to stop the urban renewal from happening, which seems unlikely given that they are so rich, they have so much ice on the remote, they have a Batty on the remote. I think it's easier to find the last agenda. So that's what we're going to aim for here. We need to make a run to steal the winning agenda before they kill us. Now we do know that they don't really have agendas in hand. Celebrity Gift basically confirms that. So what do we do here? Well, we're gonna drop the second Cyber Dealer as a secondary form of economy and then run again on R&D, only to realize that this entire freaking game I have been converting Anansi's and Kakugos needlessly into code gates because they already were. I'm playing freaking bloody Kit. Why was I using Engolo to convert all those eyes to code gates? In fact, I did that 6 times, wasting a total of 12 credits unnecessarily. Jeez, I'm good at this game, and I bet I'm not gonna hear the end of it from you all as you'll head to the comment section to tell me all about it. Yeah, such is life, I guess. To look on the bright side, at least I realized this before the game ended, right? So with that said, I'm gonna backpedal a bit here, undo the Engolo conversion. Obviously using Kit, I'm able to break Kakugo using Engolo normally, breaking Harvester here, getting my Cyber Dealer credits, and seeing an NGO front after the equivocation draw. Where are their agendas? Jeez. Thankfully R&D is getting thin, so my R&D pressure is only going to increase further and further on. Unfortunately, I don't have all the time in the world. As the urban renewal ticks down, next turn is going to be do or die for me. Well, not exactly, but pretty much. In theory, I can survive for a very long time, as long as I have enough money to power the feedback filter. But realistically, I don't want to give my opponent the third Obo Carter. So, we are in kind of a pickle here. Obviously, the ideal play actually, if you know your opponent's deck and know that they don't have any other source of meat damage, is to just take a lot of money and lock down the remote. The problem with doing that is I don't know my opponent's full deck, so I'm forced to go for Hail Mary here on R&D. Gonna see 2 of the 12 cards. Now, they res the outer vanilla, but here's where Kit and Engolo come hand in hand. Kit makes the vanilla a code gate, so we break it for easy peasy 1 credit. The inner Kakugo turns into a code gate thanks to Engolo, and we are able to get through the other 2 ice. Harvester's a code gate, and the inner ice is femmed. So once again, passing the femmed ice with exactly 3 credits, we are fine. We force them to draw, distract the masses, so that's quite important. Because after hitting that urban renewal, they could potentially shuffle all their urban renewals back into the deck and attempt to deal another 4 meat damage to me to end the game. So yeah, I guess taking lots of money forever wasn't exactly the best solution. But we have a problem. That R&D dig whiffed and I'm down to 2 credits. This is a disaster. I was totally expecting to get an agenda off the top of R&D some way, shape or form. But with that failing, I'm going to admit defeat and run archives to see if my opponent has been cheeky. And looking at the chat, I realized this was a very big mistake. They call me a madman. Oh no! What? Future perfects! All 3 of them in the bin. So that's where they were. Okay. You want to play 3 side games for the win, right? Fine, snap bid 2 credits for the first future perfect, and of course I get it. Some may call me lucky. Others may say that I savagely outplayed my opponent. Whichever the case was, this game was mine for the taking. Now, there was definitely rhyme and reason behind the 2 credit side bid. If you analyze it from both sides of the board, it makes a lot of sense. As from my point of view, I only started the access with 4 credits. So if I bid 2 on the first future perfect, I would be left with just 2 credits to play 2 more side games, severely hampering my ability, to threaten the various bids because I am so poor. Because of this, as the runner, it just makes perfect sense to bid 2. because the core will typically play very conservatively on the first bit, going for a 0 so that they get full control over the side bits for the next 2 side games. And that is why I won up my opponent there like a rock paper scissors game and went straight for the bit 2. Preying on that mind game, and I managed to get it right. So yeah, so that's how you can potentially swing the outcomes of side games in your favor. One up your opponent and outthink what they are thinking, so that the bid ends up in your favor. So what about Kit and Engolo? Well, it turns out they are a match made in heaven, shall I say? You notice the game. Despite me messing up big time by forgetting about Kit entirely, I still managed to penetrate my opponent's servers. I still managed to finish the game with just enough credits to play side games. Had I not made a mistake in the first place, I would be 12 credits up. That would have given me a much easier time with regards to pressuring servers, running the remote, or hammering archives multiple times. I was afraid of breach domes in archives, but turns out it was just benign future perfects that were waiting for me to steal. As for Engolo, you notice that for basically the entire early to mid game, it was the only permanent breaker on my board, and that just shows how powerful it is. The ability to to be able to run any server with only a single breaker install is so good. It's almost like an AI breaker, but it's more efficient than the typical AI breakers like Crypsis or Overmind. It's that good, and it gave me its efficiency. It's not like Armor Core levels of efficient when Armor Core is charged up, but it was efficient enough such that I was able to make enough runs to steal 7 agenda points on centrals before my opponent could flatline me, and really that's all that matters. So yeah, Kit Engolo is definitely going to be a thing that will stay in the meta. There will always be people playing it because it has a base power level there as long as Magnum Opus is playable. It might not be the strongest possible option, but I guess that's why they designed Engolo to be, arguably worse than Laamb, because if it were any better, as Code Gate Breakers should be for Shapers, Engolo Kate would possibly be quite broken. Well, have fun playing Engolo Kate. There's so many ways you can build it. This one example, the decklist of which I'll post in the description, doesn't do it justice. I'm sure you can find better ways to use the influence to use the deck slots. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and happy net running. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.